here we are on this special day for the 300th episode of the Startup Junkie podcast. And this is a little bit like the Charles Dickens Christmas Carol in that we've got the ghost of Christmas past, the ghost of Christmas present, and maybe the ghost of Christmas future here together, if that makes any sense at all. But we're fortunate today. This is Jeff Amerine, the Startup Junkie, one of the two original hosts for the show. And I'm joined by John Kitju.
Hey, Jeff, how's it going?
It's good. Glad to have you back.
I feel like it's been at least 100 episodes.
It has. Now that you're on work release, though, we can see you more often.
Ever since I got let go from ESPN.
Exactly. And you saw I'm forgiving those guys for that, haven't you?
No.
You know, Fox Nation. Fox Nation. You know, they'll be looking to pick it up.
I made a simple joke.
CNN Plus, not so good.
Yeah, right. CNN Plus. Still waiting for that phone call.
Yeah. It'll be a long way. You have to be bald and about 300 pounds to be on that.
Yeah, right.
So, and we've also got Michael Eisman of Acre Trader, formerly a Startup Junkie, serial entrepreneur extraordinaire. Hey, Michael.
Hey,
welcome back.
To be back. Yeah.
So Michael and John were the two guys at different times that kept me from really going off the rails with the podcast
For the first 100 episodes or so.
Exactly.
Yeah, we were out.
Exactly. They couldn't do it anymore. It's kind of like
too much work.
You know, something. Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan. Eventually, Scottie Pippen was like, enough. I'm tired of passing the guy the ball. And it takes 300 shots. And
so it's Michael Jordan.
No. Oh, I didn't mean it like that. Yes, I did.
He's more like Scottie Pippen today.
I'm more like Dennis Rodman.
There you go. That's it.
Speaking of ball.
Yeah, exactly. It's got to have nose rings and stuff in here. But in all seriousness, we also have Caleb Talley here, who's the executive director of Startup Junkie Foundation and one of our regular hosts, and Davis McEntire, who has been our producer and the guy that handles the 100 emails a day that we now get from randos all around the world wanting to be on the podcast that we're very happy to get. Thank you very much.
Now keep them coming.
Keep them coming.
Yeah. Davis's inbox loves it.
Mm-hmm. Davis is an Acre Trader alum.
Yes.
That's right. Well. Acre Trader alum, and now he's on the side of light. So, welcome to the side of light.
There's no cookies on this side.
And Cynthia, the amazing Cynthia Magri, who was the voice for the intros and the outros and tried to bring some professionalism to a highly rednecked program. So glad to have you back.
Thanks. It's awesome to be here.
And Matthew Ward, the man of mystery, former Stevens, former Startup Junkie, back to Startup Junkie, and also a former and occasionally current co-host.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you. So now, in true Seinfeld fashion, what the hell are we going to talk about? Who are these people?
We're living in a society here.
I was waiting for the memo.
Top Gun? Top Gun?
Top Gun?
We want to tie.
That'll really age well if we talk about Top Gun for the next 30 minutes.
You don't think
it'll still be number one in the box office probably when this drops?
50 years from now, when somebody's listening to this podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yes, 50 years from now.
Yeah.
So how many times can you say, talk to me, Goose, anyway? Right? Do some of that pilot shit. It's like, all right.
It's not my job to keep us on the rails anymore.
No, that's true. Thank you. See, you're gone for 5 minutes and you already get that.
I just figured it would come in like a reflex.
That's what we were hoping for.
It's a bicycle. Bentonville reference.
That's right.
It's been 300 episodes since we started this back in 2015.
2015. Talk about how we got started, John. That's a good place to start.
Good.
So Jeff and I were acquaintances, and I went to a couple of startup Junkie events, and got to know him a little bit. And then I think I was trying to get a podcast off the ground back in 2012, 13, I think that time frame.
It's about cabinets, wasn't it?
It was about bringing education to basically construction tradespeople.
It was tool time. This guy thinks he's Tim Allen.
Except for he was. I don't think. I know. And I just hired Pamela Anderson. She was the tool time girl. No, but we were talking about it, and I said to Jeff, "You need to take a look at podcasts." And Jeff said,
I said, what's a podcast? Probably not. Something like that. It's like, oh, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
So we ended up doing, I think, the first one over the phone. And
scintillating discussion of lean canvas and customer discovery.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And lean canvas is it still a big part?
Yeah, still a thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
still very important.
It has aged well. People have made lots of money on books.
Yeah.
Not me, but others like Ash Moria have made lots of money on books.
And then the as far as the momentum of Startup Junkie goes, you ended up having me as a co-host, then eventually Michael, and he had a lot of great guests on there. I mean, Stan Zalowski, Lee Robinson from Bentonville
Brewing, yeah.
I think Charleston.
It was who can we get to sponsor the beer for this podcast?
Exactly. that was or the whiskey.
Actually, that was a huge. Not for a while. That was like a huge.
That was the main thing. It's like, well,
if you look at the first 20 episodes, I think 6 of them are different brewery founders.
Kind of like when we were kids, when you wanted to go to a movie with your friend. Well, my mom will drive. If your mom will pick up, we used to say, well, if you could bring beer, you can be on the podcast.
That's exactly right. That was the price of admission. And
and now we're just trying to,
we've upgraded.
Bill, you see this?
We've upgraded. Yeah.
But you've come a long way, and you have 300 episodes under your belt.
This is the 300th. Downloaded in 100 countries.
Like 150.
I think that's actually true. That's not most of the half-truths I say on the podcast.
Is it true that it's bigger than Joe Rogan's podcast?
It is.
In the minds of some people.
It is. It has the potential to be bigger.
Yes.
So we win in our time slot.
Oh, nice.
And I have no idea what that means, but
2 a.m. to 3 a.m.
we win in our time slot every time.
After you listen to every other podcast out there.
Right. We're tracking with the demographic he just can't get to.
It is about 115 countries.
115 countries.
About 115. And I want to say I haven't looked at it in a while, but we're consistently downloaded like weekly in like 15 countries. Like consistently.
Can you share how many downloads?
And we're top 2%. It's been more than 100,000 downloads total.
We're like probably 125, close to 125.
So it's not just one person flying.
We actually hire people to return. Download. Yeah. We're all about pumping up the vanity stats. If something good happens, it's a miracle, but we're all about pumping up the stats.
And then we've also seen the growth of Startup Junkie itself come a long way in these 7 years.
Yeah, it's been a business that's just been too ornery to die.
Yeah. How many businesses do you think you've helped?
Oh, over 15 years? Wow. I would say in terms of entrepreneurs across the whole team, probably more than 10,000.
Wow.
I would say easily because we have probably 1,000 entrepreneurial engagements or meetings every year.
Really?
And some of those are repeats during the year, but if you were to extrapolate that over 15 years, it's got to be into the tens of thousands.
When you look back at all of the individuals, because really that's what a startup comes down to. It's a person or persons, not a company. What do you think is, can you give us an example of one of the most successful ones that you guys are proud of?
Wow, that's like trying to pick a favorite amongst your kids.
Yeah,
that doesn't.
Well, you got them, but you're not going to say it out loud.
That doesn't end well. Yeah. You just hope they don't listen to your podcast.
My favorite. Well, that's easy for me to do with my 2 kids. Depends on which one I'm talking to at the time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's whoever's right in front of me. That's my favorite. That's. There have been so many kind of amazing people on there. And Carter Malloy, and I'm not saying that just because
who's right in front of
Michael. Just because Michael's here, and we hope that someday Acre Trader sends us some love and is actually a sponsor of something that really helped get them started.
And even mentions you like in a press release.
Exactly. Carter, but in all seriousness, Carter was an impressive individual and really amazing. And you could tell that even when we interviewed him in the early days that he was onto something that was going to be big.
And his name, what a cool name, Carter Malloy.
It sounds like, a DC or a Marvel superhero,
exactly.
doesn't it? Right?
It's not enough alliteration.
He's got to have some kind of superpower. I don't think he'd be a character on The Boys. I don't know if you watch The Boys, but you watch that one? I don't think he'd be a character.
He's no Homelander.
He's no Homelander. He's a little too clean cut for that. But
he's more like Butcher.
Well, he's not cruel enough to be Butcher. I mean, Butcher I'd like to emulate Butcher. There's plenty of times.
So I'll take the pressure off you on that question because that is.
Who was your favorite? Who did you like during the time when we were together? Who was one of your favorites?
Actually, I liked them all, and a lot of them have become friends of mine.
Right.
So, I don't want to single any of them out.
Oh, great. So you're not going to do it either, huh? But, Make me do it, and then you won't do it.
Yeah. It's like, like you said, it's like picking your favorite child. But I would say, watching, I get a kick out of watching friends or really watching anybody with a struggle figure this out.
Yeah.
Because doing your own thing, you've got, it would be like sailing out in the middle of the ocean with 100 knot winds against you and still having a smile on your face.
Yeah.
Figuring that you're going to get to where you want to go.
Yeah.
And that's what, there's also sorts of, euphemisms where people say, being an entrepreneur is like jumping out of a plane without a parachute and then figuring out how to
build it on the way down.
Build it on the way down. It is a lot like that.
Sometimes it's like jumping out of an airplane with an anvil around your neck.
Yes. Yeah, right. And actually, you get people,
that's a Looney Tunes reference.
you get people with all sorts of ideas, and it doesn't take much for people to look at it and go, well, that's a passion, probably not a good idea.
Yeah.
And being able to communicate that to people, I think probably would be a challenge because you don't want to be the guy that bursts the bubble, but at the same time, you don't want to be the guy that stands there and watch a guy head down a one-way street the wrong way.
And you know what we do. So I mean, kind of getting that's kind of a good thing is people say, well, how do you manage all that? And when somebody's got a really awful idea, what do you do? It's not really our job to tell them we think your idea sucks.
Yeah.
What we typically do is ask them pointed questions and give them the tools to walk that path that only they can walk down. And it's got to be a process for the entrepreneur of sort of self-discovery where they realize based on what the market is telling them that it's not a good idea. Because we would be doing a disservice. We don't know. We don't have a priori omnipotent knowledge of everything in the world that could possibly work. We tend to have some instincts. But if you give them the tools and they go out and do the customer discovery and they go through and validate or invalidate their assumptions, they'll find out on their own.
Yeah.
And some of them still don't realize it. I mean, they can get all kinds of indicators. They can have the equivalent of customer discovery where they're getting hit in the head by a 2x4 in every interview and still be convinced that people just don't get it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The market doesn't get it. They're telling you something. Markets are ruthlessly efficient. So we try to just give them the tools and then say, go forth and find out and then come back and talk to us about what you find rather than saying, if we wouldn't have that many people coming back here if we said it's the dumbest damned idea I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And two, if just, 6 of us, however many's in here, I mean, that's not a market in and of itself.
No.
I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of ideas over the course of time that a handful of people said, that's really stupid. That has become like,
it has.
So.
It has. I mean,
or that a handful of people have said, that's really great.
Go do this.
And it's all your best friends or your mom. And,
exactly. All that bias, right?
Your feedback that you get to market with.
Yeah.
True.
And Michael, you're now with Acre Trader.
Right.
And what was it like working here for how many years?
I was here for 3.5 to 4 years.
Oh, really? Because Jeff was thinking it felt longer.
Yeah. It's kind of like every day is like measured in dog years, right? It's like 7 to 1.
Do you have a question? Or are you just teeing yourself up? So next.
That just popped in my head. No, but now you're actually out and working for a startup that's getting a lot of press.
It's a growth stage venture, I would call it now. Yeah. It's beyond startup.
True. Mm-hmm. How old is Acre Trader?
We started in 2018 is when it was formed. I was the 5th full-time employee and I joined in 2019. So about 4 years old.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And now I think probably 115, 120 people.
And how many former Startup Junkies have y'all accumulated?
At least 3 or 4. Yeah. 4.
And
Megan, Morgan, and Alex.
And it's time to talk about the original breakup story when Michael broke the news to me.
How much of this are you going to share?
I'm going to share all of it. And I'm going to share 100% of it. So here's how this went. And Michael and I have been have been friends and colleagues since he was in college.
Yeah, you say
working on.
It felt longer.
I'm sure it did for you because it's like every day is a fun day for me. It's just whoever shows up, great. But so the story was, it kind of went like this. And he had. I knew that he had the itch to do something entrepreneurial because we'd had other conversations about other opportunities. But he gets me all lathered up, drunked up over at Big Box Karaoke. And we're singing and we're having a good time. And we walk out of there and we're walking back over the building. He's like, so I'm all lathered up. I'm probably about 3 or 4 beers in. And he's like, hey, I want to talk to you about something. And I was like, okay. And he's like, I've got this really interesting opportunity, and I think I want to pursue it. And it's a great company, and you know him, and it's Carter Malloy, an acre trader, and he's kind of asked me if I would join him, and I didn't react poorly because I knew that if you got a business like Startup Junkie, you know that it's going to be a launch pad for people. They're eventually going to get to the point where there might be other things that they want to go do, but that's kind of how that went. He got me all drunked up before he gave me the news. He knew that I'd have a weakness.
Mike, what led you joining Acre Trader? Was there certain things that you were looking for that would warrant you being like?
And that was a happy day, by the way. All kidding aside, that was a happy day. I mean, it was sad to see him go, but happy for him because it was a great opportunity.
And it was maybe a month later that you walked over to Acre Trader. We did an update, and Jeff and I think this. Can we share this? Jeff invested in Acre Trader. And the farms.
Yeah, I don't
Both
care.
of
No, you can't.
Sure. Yeah, it's like cut that.
I was like trying to figure out.
Jacob.
I drained my 401k and took every cent.
So I think it's going pretty well.
Literally bet the farm on Michael.
No, I really enjoyed the work at Startup Junkie and was certainly more plugged in and engaged with the community and knew what was going on in Northwest Arkansas much better 3 years ago than I do now. I think that part of it was I had seen a lot of companies. I mean, you talk about 10,000 companies you talk to. You see a lot of ideas. You see some really successful entrepreneurs. And I kind of wanted to, I dabbled in entrepreneurship but had not done it myself. And so I've always had some sort of imposter syndrome, and that was part of it.
We used to talk about that a lot.
But it was here's an opportunity. I had a background in finance, always had a lot of admiration and appreciation for farmers, and we go to deer hunting on a farm, but didn't really grow up on a tractor by any means. And it was this really unique opportunity. You talked about the ideas are not really what makes a startup successful or a company successful. It's the people, and I really appreciated the early team there. And then Carter was the first investor in the company as well. And so if you think about someone going out and raising money for an idea, it's a lot more compelling whenever they put their own
and to his credit, really words of praise for both Michael and Carter. Michael talked to me about it, didn't just tell me I'm putting my notice in. And then Carter called me immediately thereafter and it's like, I want to talk to you about it. I want to make sure it's okay. And I was like, that was a class way to do it. Mm-hmm. And it wouldn't have mattered. I mean, I wouldn't have held it against you either way.
Scared.
Was he? Well, that's good. He should stay scared.
And it's funny.
You better make that thing worth a few $1 billion. Just stay scared, Carter. I'm banking on my retirement on you, man. Don't screw it up.
It's funny that you say that about him being scared and all that, because when Morgan left and went somewhere else, not Acre Trader,
to Forge.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then when she did that, that's when, or at least that's what I was told. It's like, that's when they're like, oh shoot, okay, yeah, let's go get Morgan now. Now she's not at Startup Junkie because it was like, oh, we can't go get her while she's at Startup Junkie. We can't do that again. So it's like, oh, she's not there anymore. Let's go get her.
You know what? But I tell you, the thing that's so cool about it is to see Michael and Morgan and Megan and Scott Andrews, who is also really close to the company. And, it's just fun to see people that are on this rocket ship ride on something that solves a real problem. It's not BS. I mean, it does something that's really tangible that helps farmers and helps farm owners and opens up an asset class. And that could legitimately be the first real unicorn here in the last 10 years, the last 15 years. It legitimately. Yeah, so don't screw it up.
It's on you, Michael. That is on you.
And to the point you made about, some pouring up.
Rocktown Distillery. Future sponsor. Future sponsor. Long-time listener. Future
Caleb, you've got an Uber.
I don't have anything on letter. But to the point you made about, we're called Startup Junkie, so of course there's going to be that launching pad opportunity. And I remember when we were interviewing for a position after Haley left, and we kind of talked about. I've always said Startup Junkie is kind of like a career accelerator. Almost, you look at everybody that's gone on to join those rocket ships and that sort of thing. And I remember, I won't forget, we sat around and had a lunch with Haley before we left, and we were talking about some of the candidates that we were looking to hire to fill that void. And we were talking internally about one of the candidates. And we kind of said in passing, like, well, they're just going to go leave in 6 months to start a business. Like, cause we knew that person and we knew what they were likely to do, because that's what they've done all the time. And you made the comment about, this is Startup Junkie. We're not going to not hire somebody because they might leave. They're going to go. It's like, and it was just kind of like
not consistent with the brand.
And like we were talking about internally, like, oh, do we want to hire this person because they might just leave and start a business? And then you kind of like brought us back to earth there for a second. It's like, oh yeah, well, duh. Like, I mean, that's what we want them here, because they do have that mindset and that drive and that sort of thing. So.
It's been so much fun. And the thing about this podcast is always kind of a window in and a window out of what we do. In that the one thing that was cool that the pandemic did, and I don't mean this in any kind of negative way, was it forced us to go online. It forced us to figure out how to do this well over Zoom. And so now probably 90% of our podcasts are through Zoom, and we get some amazing people on. We had a guy on the other day, Stacy Taniguchi. That episode will probably come out after this one, I think.
Probably. Yeah.
Born on the island of Molokai in Hawaii. He ended up going through and getting a PhD, and I suspect it was in business or business related, maybe psychology.
Business related.
He went to Alaska and became a professional guide, and also taught in Alaska while he was doing that as an academic. And he's been at BYU the last 15 years, but he has figured out how to integrate that professional guide business into getting people to thrive in their life. So he doesn't call it a bucket list. He calls it 100. I think it's 100 list of 100 to thrive. To thrive. And he incorporates all these outdoor adventures, kind of like Outward Bound type of stuff, really cool stuff, into getting people to unlock the potential that they have. We get to talk to some of the coolest people on the podcast.
And then that same day, I did a podcast with a woman in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Literally in Ukraine. Yeah. Operating a thriving startup in a war zone.
Aliana Misko. And she had a fintech platform that, here they're under missile attack and all kinds of crazy stuff. And the thing I took away that more than anything else, if you don't already admire kind of what they've been up against over there, was if you think you got problems running a startup, nobody's dropping bombs on you. Yeah. Think about what those Ukrainian founders are doing. Yeah. When you think you're having a bad day, suck it up and realize that people are still running great businesses in a war zone. Yeah. So
that was eye-opening to me too, because I knew she was Ukrainian, but I didn't know she was on the ground there. So I asked her when we, pop on Zoom, like, how's it going? She goes,
okay, now.
We're okay today. Like, we're okay right now.
They were in Lviv. Yeah. So they were they're in the western side, but she had clearly
to avoid really the front line. Yeah.
That's amazing. Entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs, they figure out a way to get it done, even under the hostile circumstances. And if you can't get inspired by that kind of thing, you're just not going to get inspired by anything. And it should also be kind of a kick in the ass for people that are whining about, I can't raise money, blah, 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 blah. It's like, stop whining. Nobody's shooting cruise missiles at you and blowing up your house, okay?
Yeah.
So get after it.
Yeah, I think about the bad days that I've had, or like the problems that I'm solving.
They were not really that big, right? In the scheme.
Like, what a privilege I get to solve these problems.
Exactly.
Exactly. Safe house.
And go home to a safe house.
Yeah. Well, to touch on Jeff's point, when I joined the Startup Junkie team, I guess a year ago now, and I was told I was going to be on the podcast, I was shaking in my boots. I had no idea what I was doing.
You hit it well. You've always been kind of a cool cat.
Well, I appreciate that. But it's been one of the coolest experiences, at least I've had. Just being able to talk, whether it was like, Phil Libben, Stuart Walton, we had on the podcast. Dean
and Stuart might have been one of the best podcasts we've ever had. So, and I'm not just saying that because Stuart Walton.
But It was
really
a
cool.
very eye-opening experience, and being, on the college side, getting that experience and that exposure has been super, super cool.
Well, you haven't missed a stride either. You've made it look easy the whole time. And I know that Davis has got to get tired of. So I get an ungodly number of emails where, this guy'd be great on the podcast from all over the place. And I used to write something there. It's like, I don't know, take a look at it. But now it's just like forward.
Just forward.
Davis will separate the shit from the shinola.
It's crazy, like not knowing this on the beforehand, and kind of eye-opening to see them all. All of those emails are so similar, so boilerplate. Like so and so is an expert in X, Y, and Z. You should ask him the questions X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
He'd make a great podcast guest, and here are the topics that he specifically wants to talk about. It's like, we don't do that.
Most of the guests out of the 300 or some, there may be some lost episodes.
Like, have you listened?
And I won't defame anybody, but we have had some guests where it's like, God Almighty, just shut off the cliche generator in the background. We've had a
alligator guy.
Well, yeah, it's like, you got to drain the swamp, and you got to kill the alligators, and then you got to climb Kilimanjaro, and it's like, oh my God.
The Arkansas Inc. podcast provides an in-depth look at the latest industry trends in Arkansas from decision makers, business leaders, and executives. The Arkansas Inc. podcast has focused on a range of business and economic development topics, including small business and entrepreneurship, international business, fintech, workforce development, and community development. Each episode, which are about 30 minutes long, features business leaders and subject matter experts in conversation with knowledgeable members of the AEDC team. Recent guests have included Governor Asa Hutchinson, UAMS Chancellor Dr. Cam Patterson, Conductor Managing Director Dr. Jeff Standridge, and representatives from companies including Amazon, Walmart, IBM, Ozark Integrated Circuits, and more. The goal of the podcast is to help provide more information about Arkansas and its strong business environment, to help business owners and executives make the decision to move to or expand in Arkansas. The Arkansas Inc. podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and other podcast apps. Just search for Arkansas Inc. To learn more or subscribe to Arkansas Inc. podcast, visit arkansasedc.com/podcast.
No,
this was literal, but it didn't make.
This guy was just.
I hope he's not listening.
Yeah, he's not
hopefully.
But
not.
if you're listening, hey man, you were great.
Yeah, you were awesome.
He was one of those those.
We'll send you your
cold
trophy.
emails where it's like, here are the
Participation
topics he wants to
trophy.
talk about. He's just like,
And occasionally
reading off
you'll
his
get
list
people
like this.
that don't engage in the conversation. They're like, they'll give you the soundbite and then they'll just sit there and look at you like,
Yeah. Well, I mean, we had that one guy that was just, we couldn't pull anything out of him.
It's like, this
and
is
then come to
this
find
supposed
out,
to
like
talk.
2 or 3 weeks later, he had an SEC investigation and all that stuff.
That was pretty funny. So actually, it was
We do have an occasional.
this is one.
He was doing it from a broom closet.
And this was falling in
he
the
was just like,
category
wouldn't
of,
say
this fall in the
anything.
category of we have new vetting procedures, but it just, so we had this guy on, and it looked like he had a lifetime supply of Grecian formula for the beard and the hair, and had the permatan, and so we're interviewing this guy, and I was like, honest to God, it looks like he's in a broom closet.
And he had a real estate play.
Right. It was a real estate play, and it was some kind of REIT deal, but it looked like we were interviewing him and he was literally hiding out in somebody's broom closet. And so we're like, I don't know what to think about that. He's a pretty good guest. And then lo and behold, we get somebody says, well, this guy's under SEC investigation.
So like, why would you interview him? Why would you give him the platform?
That one came down really quick.
Yeah.
Took that off.
Yeah.
So anyhow.
Well, that one wasn't on me. The 2 or 3 days after we had filmed that, the SEC
that's when
investigation was filed.
We wouldn't have any way of knowing. I mean,
his stress was from knowing it was coming.
Yeah.
So it happened after the fact. That window of time between recording and airing. So.
Section of the episode just like so that you get fewer cold emails.
I'm not really sure.
Don't email us unless you're going to sponsor.
Right. Now, if you're a gangster and you're going to send money, then come on. But if not, forget it.
Well, that brings up an important conversation, Jeff. How do you avoid an SEC investigation? Go ahead. I'll let you.
Exactly. Whose palms do you grease?
I know, right? So funny. That could be a total topic. How to avoid
an SEC investigation?
Follow the rules.
But step one, follow the rules.
There are no rules.
Step 2, have a good lawyer. Yeah. It's funny stuff.
But circling back to your point and kind of how you like, I want to comment too. Like Matthew kind of jumped in there too.
Yeah,
a year or two
Yeah.
ago, and kind of did the same thing. And honestly, watched Matthew kind of like open up really through the podcast too, and just kind of ask more inquisitive questions, and just like from day one to like now, like yesterday when we had the podcast episode, and just I don't know, just like. I think can speak to that too,
Talk
kind
about
of your progress. Yeah.
You were on a bunch of episodes.
Davis and I were in the same boat. So I was getting my MBA at Arkansas. And when I first got on there, like it was still a big deal. But I was like, if I mess up one word, Jeff's going to cut me off and fire me. I'm not going to be able to enter a Startup Junkie anymore.
You didn't know me well enough.
We'll just fire you. We'll just beat you with reeds.
Super intimidating.
But really nervous. But over time, understanding how to research, whether it's LinkedIn or the company website, trying to figure out, okay, maybe I shouldn't ask this question. It's probably something they've been asked quite a bit. And just trying to figure out how to dig in deeper, whether it's personal or business. And
See, Matthew actually took this seriously. So he did.
Well,
It
it helps drive the conversation.
It does, because he is actually well-researched and knew the right questions to ask.
That's weird because we never did.
No.
Well, and then
I took my cues from you. So, I don't know, just show up and talk about anything.
Did you bring beer? Okay.
Okay.
I will say that's kind of the approach I took at first when I started coming on the podcast, was just like sitting down and just jumping in the conversation. And then I found out if I looked up the name of the business they were with.
It's always helpful.
And that sort of thing. It was like, oh, snap, I could probably come up with some questions.
To me, it's always kind of like a surprise birthday party. It's like, hey,
you do what?
How quick can I get caught up here? Act like I actually know what the hell they do. Cynthia, what's your take on all this? You've seen this kind of since inception when the two knuckleheads started. What's your take?
I mean, it really, no offense, has gotten far more professional. There's a lot of fun.
You knew that was coming, didn't you?
I got it.
But when you do, to Caleb's point, when you do sit down with so many people, it's hard to have that inside track.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with sitting down and having a conversation and getting to know somebody, because these can be intimidating. The microphone,
Oh, immediately.
I mean, you put this in front of some people and they don't know what to do or where to go or what to say. But it's been interesting to be able to have been part of this from the beginning. And like you said, to know more about what's going on in the community from the very beginning, from a ground level. And then you see people out and you're like, oh, I know you, or I saw you on the podcast. And there's been some people I've gone up to. It's like, you've been on Jeff's podcast. They're like, yeah, how did you know? It's like, it's a thing. People listen.
It's got a following.
Yeah,
and,
it really does.
The first kind of indication I had of that, because it was a lark. We did it because it was fun, and then we enjoyed it, and it kind of broke up the week and whatnot. But we had Aaron Fiddler, who now sits in Australia. He was with Applied Predictive Technologies. He came up to me sometime when he was traveling back here for a visit, and he was like, my wife's an avid fan. She really liked the meeting. I was like, you got to be kidding me. It's like, I don't have fans. Come
That's
on.
awesome.
But there are active listeners that like it. I mean, they're getting some value from the conversations and the rants, and I think there's more substantive stuff that comes out of it than just the joking around.
Oh, yeah. And you think about it, and so going back to those Vanity Statistics, we're in the ballpark of, we don't dip below 300 downloads a week now. And we're in the ballpark of 300 to up to 1,000 downloads a week. And you think about that, that 300 are probably the people that are listening every week.
Right.
So if you think 300 people are listening to us every week, it's weird for me to wrap my head around, like 300 people listen.
It's a little bit of pressure not to suck, right? Really,
Thank you.
Want to keep it.
Watch out, Joe Rogan. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, so he might get 12
We don't have any
million.
disclaimers on our podcast.
12,300,000.
Actually, I had heard that he gets more downloads per episode than CNN gets viewers every day.
that's a fact.
It's like
That's a fact.
that and all the other networks combined.
Yeah.
He
That's
has
a
more.
fact.
He has more
It's
active.
insane.
He gets 11 million
Audience.
downloads per episode.
Yeah.
But that says more about the fragmentation of media than the quality of his product, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'll take a fraction of his Spotify contract.
Well, it's because he gets everybody.
Yes. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? You
Should
guys
write
need to
this
do
down,
that.
so-
Instead of serving beer,
A little medical marijuana.
a little metal control with a proper license.
Jokes on you. There's
course.
THC in that whiskey.
Yeah.
Is that what that is? Oh man. Oh, gosh.
But going back to you, Jeff, you guys, obviously you've got a lot of people here at the table that are here because of what you've done. Michael's at Acre Trader because of what you started. Acre Trader has been influenced by you. The list goes on and on and on and on. And what a remarkable legacy that you left here in Northwest Arkansas, because you saw the vision before Northwest Arkansas became the cool place, a cool place, not the cool place, but a cool place.
Capital T.
Yeah. Because now you've got people moving here from all over the country. You've got a certain family, I'm not allowed to say their name, don't have copyright permissions, that is investing heavily in the area. The communities here, Fayetteville, Springdale, Rogers, Bentonville, Bella Vista, are all marketing to outsiders. And one of the common themes I hear is it's the next Austin, right? I think even even Bentonville, Bentonville has a big billboard at the Austin airport.
They do.
Yeah. They remember 10 years ago when you thought, oh man, I should have bought property in Bella Vista or in Austin. Here's your opportunity, Bentonville.
Yeah.
And here you
can afford your mortgage.
Kind of you're the Pied Piper of Northwest Arkansas and startups.
Yeah. I don't know about that.
Yeah.
But it's
No, you are.
Okay. All right, I'll take that.
Period.
I'll take that.
I mean, you got some pretty big heavy hitters backing you. In a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Not just financially, but in a lot of ways. It's because you guys are doing good work.
Well, thank you. It's been one of those things that I think we just 80% of life is just showing up and staying with it. Yeah. And we weren't going to give up on it. And we weren't going to worry about who else came to the table or what else got started, because it's so much to do. Right. We were in the right place at the right time, filling a vacuum that needed to be filled. If you think about what was going on in the state, what was going on in the country, this place was reliant on the geographic expansion of the big three, Walmart, J.B. Hunt, and Tyson. And at some point they realized that can only take us so far. And it was actually Ross Duvall 22 years ago, who's now with Heartland Forward, that wrote that Millikan Institute study that I will succinctly summarize in a way that he would not, because he's a true economic genius. But the message from that report was, we're going to suck in everything and be dead ass last in every category if we don't do more with innovation and entrepreneurship. And he's right. And so some of this, the time was right. The pieces were all there. And if I did anything, it was just because I wasn't afraid and I didn't ask permission. And we just got some of this stuff going. So, and I think that's kind of the startup way. It's definitely the Startup Junkie way. Is we're not real good at taking orders. We kind of have some insights into what needs to happen. And we had this credo that developed over time that said, we're going to assume positive intent and we'll collaborate with anyone that will collaborate with us. And we still feel that way. I mean, that's not the core values of the business, but it is kind of a mindset that we have, so that when more people come to the table, there's so much required to build an innovation entrepreneurial ecosystem. It requires a lot of people involved, and no one group owns it. We don't own it. We're glad to be part of it. And it's so much better now than it was 15 years ago. I mean, first of all, entrepreneurship's a hard word to spell. There was maybe 5 people in the state that could spell it 15 years ago. And now I think there's a lot of people that understand the importance of it, that is how this place gets renewed and refreshed and can realize its full potential. So it's been a privilege, really, as much as a calling to be part of all this. And the podcast has really been the outlet for a lot of that. That's been the opportunity where you're not engaged with a client, you're just talking to really interesting people, and we're learning from them. We learn from every single one of the guests about what they did and what they felt. And I reflect on some of the interviews we had with people like Sarah Frye. Remember her? Yeah. Sarah Frye. So she had...
Pumpkin Queen.
Yeah, she had built a juggernaut of a truck farm, essentially, that's nationally consequential. It might be $1 billion entity now. But she figured out how to really successfully grow vegetables, a variety of different vegetables nationwide, and then get them into distribution. We were able to interview people like that. And it's like, how the hell did she do that? She was a
like a struggling farm that was about to go under
that her parents had.
Yeah.
And she figured out how to inject some business sense into it. And there's the point, the inspiration that you can draw from that type of story is pretty amazing. And there was no tech associated with that. That was just fundamental business that she figured out how to build and make huge. And that's the story.
If you buy a pumpkin or a watermelon from Walmart, it probably came from her.
You know what we get to talk about, and I still believe in it, and I will never give up on this belief, is that free enterprise and the ability to create something from your own wits and to get people to rally around what you're doing is the salvation of the world. And not a lot of other things are. This is, because more people have been lifted out of bad circumstances and poverty and they're whatever unfortunate place where they happen to be, through somebody taking the chance to create something that would create jobs and employ people. And it's entrepreneurs in many respects are going to save the world again and again and again. Beer did it first, I think. But it was an entrepreneur that said,
"Well, beer fueled the."
It was, you can imagine this, right? It's probably some guy way back there in Europe that was like, it's like, "Hey, Bjorn." It's like, "Yeah." It's like, "Bjorn, dude, what are we gonna do with all this grain that's gonna rot?" And he's like, "I don't know. Let's just put it in a barrel and see what happens if we pour some water on it." And they realized that shit fermented, and you could store calories in it. And that saved the world, right? I mean, it literally did. That was a way that they could store calories through fermentation.
Save England, that's for sure.
Yeah.
They couldn't drink their water, so they drank
them. It also kept them in the Middle Ages for about 400 years. Because they were also shit-faced and hammered all the time. Until there was a few of them that were awake enough. Maybe they were gluten intolerant, I don't know. Then they decided, we got to sail and find something else. And they found tea and coffee, and they're like, wake the hell up. You got to work. So,
of course, it didn't do anything for the British.
You look at the inventions, the entrepreneurship out of, I think it's Ireland. And it's like all the inventions that came out of Ireland, and it was like whiskey, and it was like
500 years.
And then more inventions.
There's a 500 year.
Yeah, there was a 500 year gap.
And the next invention.
The old Family Guy episode. Did you ever see that?
Oh yeah.
The Family Guy. They showed Ireland like 500 years ago. They got flying saucers, and then somebody came up with beer. Yeah. It was all downhill.
Yeah.
But going back to your point about all of this, that it will lead. Your comment about Ukraine and the gal that you interviewed. She is one of the people, when they are done, hopefully soon, with the war in Ukraine, and hopefully Putin withdraws in deep humility, and she will lead the way. She will be one of the people that leads Ukraine into the new Ukraine.
I'm certain she's already an inspiration and will be to that.
Well, and there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them over there. Right. There's a lot of these software engineers and others over there that have just continued. They've just continued.
And if the spirit of entrepreneurialism or whatever it is not accepted in the particular country they are, people leave.
Yeah.
They leave. Whether it's France, because France can be stifling on this kind of thing, or Spain or China, they leave and they go to countries like the United States, not just necessarily the United States, where it's much more open and accessible to get the resources you need to have a successful business. And with the, going back to everything you've done, Jeff, you got a lot of people at this table that are thankful for it.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful for our long-term friendship. We've done some stuff here and there together. This podcast has been a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
And
it wouldn't have started had you not taken the initiative to say, hey, I want to do this.
It would have started eventually, just maybe not as early as it did.
Well,
because you kind of see things, you're a little dinosaurish. You were born in 1927.
That's right.
Did they even have electricity in cars back then?
It was pretty tough riding a horse to school.
He learned about the Titanic on
I'm not even sure that.
No.
But it's the environment here. I've lived in a few states. The environment here, one, is just a quality of life. And by the way, no one should ever move to Northwest Arkansas again because it's getting too crowded. But it's a great place.
And don't park on the square.
and you can't park behind your building anymore. What's all this?
Yeah, the libertarian parking lot's dead.
Yeah, but in all seriousness, you have this great community here in all of Northwest Arkansas.
That's true.
And I couldn't have done what I've done without the people of Arkansas. And I have breakfast. One of the coolest things that's come out of all of my stuff I've done is I have breakfast a couple of times a month. They meet every day. I just can't do it. But they meet every day, and they're a group of gentlemen that have been in this community for a long time. The youngest is going to be 81 this month. Wow. Next to me. I'm the youngest, but then he's the next youngest is going to be 81.
Wow.
And the oldest is going to be 94 this month.
Wow.
Most of them have survived COVID, and I don't mean the one out there now. I mean like Delta and prior, they survived it.
Yeah.
They are a great group of people. And these guys, you would think looking at them that they're entrenched in their way because they're born and raised here. When they went to high school in Bentonville, it was the old high middle school. And they are the most welcoming, accepting people. And they are the stereotype, what you would think is the stereotype of not being open-minded. They're the opposite.
Yeah.
And people like that have been in this community very, very open and welcoming.
I think that, to your point is I think that's part of the DNA of this place, which is not shared everywhere. And it is, we're glad you're here. How can we help? It's not, who are you and how the hell did you get here?
Yeah.
Or why are you here? It's more of, we're glad you're here. How can we help?
Or like
that's part of it.
Or some of the other hurdles I've experienced in other towns is your name is not XYZ.
Right.
Mm-hmm. You're not invited.
It's the core.
You're not part of the
card. Yeah.
It really, there's not a caste system here to use something that people are familiar with.
Why do you think that is?
And well,
that's a good question.
So I think part of it is, and that exists all over the world, right? The first time I did business in some international areas, which I won't specifically talk about right now, there was a lot of conversation about two things mattered: who your dad was and what school you went to. Mm-hmm. That was not anywhere in the U.S. That was somewhere else. I think it's partly because this is not the old South. There are places in the old South where there were plantations and there was a plantation mindset and the wealthy had money and everyone else was subservient to that. And I've got mine, you don't have yours. This is a hard scrabble, super hard scrabble place in the Ozarks. There was no arable land here. There was not a history of slavery here. You had to do whatever you had to do to eke out a living, which is entrepreneurial genetics. Mm-hmm. You couldn't count on anything being given to you. Mm-hmm. And I think that stayed in the water, that stayed in the mindset. You see people like J.B. Hunt, who had a 6th grade education, was dyslexic, could barely read, and built this gigantic transportation company in a place that didn't even have good roads. You see the same thing in Boone County with Sheridan Garrison, built the world's fastest growing LTL. And it was an awful place to build any kind of business, and yet he did it. Walmart, the same thing. Nested here. Tyson Foods, the same thing. They built outsized businesses without any advantage whatsoever. And I think it's because there's something that's almost epigenetically built into this place that says, we're the underdog, but we're going to figure it out. Mm-hmm. So there's no expectation anybody's going to hand you anything. Mm-hmm. And I think
it was a place of outlaws, right? Way back in the day, it could be a sentiment.
Moonshiners and outlaws and self-determineds, right? And we're just going to figure it out.
And then compounding and adding to that, to your question, and it continues to be that, I think, that part of that is in the DNA, but also you have so many people from outside
all over the place
that's coming in every day. How could you possibly be structured around who's who when you have so many people coming in every day, and those people are gravitating, like the gravity is pulling them in because of that. And as a result, you get all these people that are scrappy and excited and ready.
The tribe is growing.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's a self-reinforcing tribe where people who are attracted to that kind of mindset come here and they realize they're welcome.
And they're coming from all over. So how could you possibly be so ingrained in that who's who plantation mindset when all of these people from literally all over the world are coming to this place because of the mindset and adding to that tribe? It just compounds.
It's way different than a lot of places.
They say that. They mention that. You've got Seattle. You've got the Seattle Freeze. You can't make friends or break into anything in Seattle.
Well, rest assured, it's the same way in the Mid-Atlantic. It's like,
Well, I want to back up and touch on something you said earlier. What is what is it?
Epigenetic?
Yeah.
See, I threw that in because that's sort of
We're going to
like,
add a dictionary to our
I'm going to tell everybody I've never heard that word before, so it's new to me.
So, okay. I mean, and actually we had a guest that talked a lot about epigenetics. Remember that guy?
Is it like, is it COVID?
It's not, first of all, it's not COVID and it's not eugenics.
Okay.
And it's not a bad thing. What it says is that over time, behaviors that are demonstrated in a population become ingrained in the DNA. And so what that means is, in a good way, is as people are doing positive things, it becomes reinforcing. And it ends up becoming
evolution.
It ends up becoming ingrained to where it's truly in the DNA. And when you see areas that are constant conflict zones and war zones,
negatively,
you see negative things where that hatred is almost built into the DNA. People come out with predisposition towards feeling certain ways, acting certain ways, having predisposition to certain behaviors. So I think there's something epigenetic here, and it's not anything associated with eugenics for those of you that have a thesaurus. It's that regardless of wherever you come from, you're going to get bought into this sort of positive feeling here that all things are possible. I mean, if there's any place in the country, and there are several, where you can say the American dream is still possible, it's still possible here. It's still possible in lots of places.
Actually, it's not just Northwest Arkansas. It's what I call the heartland.
Yeah.
And the heartland are not the major markets.
That's right.
Yeah.
The major markets,
Absolutely.
people
It's
are
still possible.
fighting for their lives in so many aspects, even the people who are considered who have had. And I've lived in big cities in the United States, and it's a totally different beast.
It's just different.
Yeah.
It's just different.
And, Northwest Arkansas, to me and my family, is home. We're from Colorado originally, and we go back quite a bit. I think this year I spent 2 months back there because of a family deal. This is our home.
Yeah.
I mean, it really has. And it's our home because of, people like everybody here. I mean, not Michael, but
everybody except this guy.
Except for But no, it's great. And, we've been able to manage, with our business. It's been trying at times because, we're in the shared office space. I don't use the word co-working because co-working to me is a bad word.
You don't have cool enough hair to be in the co-working.
Correct.
I mean, Adam Newman was going to win the hair contest.
And I'm not trying to change the world with...
Not that WeWork sucks or anything.
Yeah. I mean, anybody who bought into that stuff, call me. I've got some stuff I want to sell you. But it's... I know, right? But anyway, you've done a great job. I'm going to pat you on the back because you interview... at this point, at least 300 people over the years, and you're always asking them about them, and no one's ever asking you about you, but you've done a great job of leading the charge here in entrepreneurialism, and it's been backed up by some of the people who support you, not only, again, financially, but in other ways that are pretty prominent in the area, and that's an important thing to say. That's a heck of a bigger legacy than I'll leave behind.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, if there's anything that's good that's happened in the last 15 years, it's because of the people around this table.
Yeah, and this podcast.
Well, and this podcast. I mean, that was kind of the genesis of all the goodness. But
I will say, I tell people that you're our work dad. And like you are the work dad, and just like the mentorship and the inspiration and just kind of the general guidance and leadership. I think that is, to your point, is
well, it does feel like a family and an extended family, and when you see the most gratification you get when you sit in my seat is when all of you do amazing things, and when the companies that where we've been part of their journey do amazing things. There's no greater satisfaction than seeing people do well and being a small part of that journey. It's been a lot of fun and super gratifying. It's been more than a job. It's been a calling, and it's something that took me about 30 years to figure out. But once I did, it's like the last 10 years have been the best ever.
We call him the Godfather, which may perpetuate some of the
Which, by the way, is copyrighted.
Jacob, edit that out.
You can edit out everything John said.
There's just a blank, and then people comment.
We call him the pain.
So let's do something fun to kind of land the plane on this. Let's do a quick go around. Is what are our hopes and expectations for the next 100 episodes of the podcast? We'll keep it specific to the podcast. What do you hope? What do you hope we do, achieve, or hear in the next 100
with
episodes?
The podcast?
Yeah, with the podcast specifically. I try to narrow it
down. I hope that we do this again for 400 episodes.
400, we will.
And when we're looking back at 400 episodes, hopefully hopefully you're able to continue to expand. Let's just sit
at a studio
300, 300 countries that you're regularly downloaded in.
That'd be 100 more than actually exist.
You don't know. We're going interstellar, baby. Interstellar landscape.
Intergalactic MFing podcast.
Maybe 301.
The geopolitical landscape's going to change quite a bit.
I don't know. Do you guys have like a target for the number of downloads for?
We're doing customer discovery here. We're trying to get that out of you guys.
Yeah. We're putting it out into the meta, the ethos.
They have no idea what they're trying to do.
We just drink beer and talk.
They know you and I are the only smart ones.
We pay people to market this.
Good job painting that picture. It was supposed to be a lightning round.
And thank you, Go Rogue, for marketing this.
I'll jump in. I'll jump
lightning
in
round. Go ahead, John.
I'm going to take the pressure off of Michael.
I think he had something, though. He's pissed at you now.
Oh, yeah? No. You sure? Jump in. In all seriousness, when we first started this, one of the things that I had hoped was that we would be able to get some folks in to talk about, it's really easy to brag about your successes and whatnot. It's a little less easy to talk about the struggles and the failures. And when we first started this, one of the things I talked to Jeff about is that I would like to have the tough conversations with people who have really struggled to be successful. Because what are the stats? Real quick, what's the stat on failures?
At least 85%. At least 85% of all small businesses.
So 85% of small businesses fail. And I think that talking to those folks that are willing to talk about their failure, what they think caused the failure, and how they're going to get past the failure, or maybe how they already moved past it because maybe they determined that working for themselves just wasn't the right answer, and maybe they went and actually sought a new job. Because I've seen it through the years with our shared office space. You get somebody coming in, they're really excited about the startup. They're going to start with themselves and then maybe one or two other people. They sign a year commitment, and 2 or 3 months in, they're begging to get out of it because they discovered that it's not going to work. They need to move on and get a job. And I think conversations about that, people need to hear that as well.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, it's a good call to action. Yeah. That's a good call to action.
And those are tough conversations had because, you hear about somebody who failed in their business. What do? Call them and go, hey, how's it going? Still a little sad? How about coming in and sharing it with, what is it, 6, 8 people?
I need you to talk to our team about how depressed you are.
But no, seriously, I've had failures. I'd be glad to talk about.
Well, listen, most entrepreneurs, and I'm certainly in that category, have failures along the way. And some of them are epic failures. I mean, some of them are complete smoking hole craters with no sign of intelligent life left afterwards. So it's you're right. Some of that needs to be brought out because you really only learn what not to do from hearing from someone that's made all the mistakes. Yeah. And that is certainly something we convey. A lot of times when we're providing advice and guidance, it's based on having done a lot of really stupid shit over the years.
And it's even better if you get like a couple in, like, significant other, husband, wife, whatever you are, and then have the other one who told them not to do it.
Oh yeah, that's
chime
good.
in.
That's
that
good
would
TV.
Be really good. TV.
That's good TV.
We've had that.
I think that show's already out. It's called Dr. Phil. It's
called Stacy and I'll do it.
It's called Divorce Court.
Caleb, the lightning round. Caleb,
right.
What do you think? Next 100 episodes. What do we want to do?
Profitable.
Yeah, actually, paying sponsors. Okay,
that would be ideal.
So if you want to sponsor this episode,
please be a sponsor.
This episode, and we can continue to up our production. Sponsor us. I think you make some good points about the opportunity for people to hear those anecdotes and to kind of really gather that information. And I think to your point earlier, like COVID really
opened a door for us to expand the opportunity to really share stories outside of just our backyard, because there are so many stories. And so I'm eager to really see what else is out there, what else we can other stories we can share.
What other cool people we can get on.
There's so many cool people that we can have on. And I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for us to go back and revisit with some of those people from the last 300 episodes to see where they're at.
Yeah.
We've done that before. And
kind of an update.
Exactly.
Yeah,
just kind of see and kind of benchmark some of these things and kind of share some of those learnings that have come after the fact and how much traction they got after being on the podcast. So sponsor the episode.
Exactly.
I think that's a good opportunity. But really just giving people the platform to be, and we've talked about this before with 1 million cups and kind of in that perspective, but giving people the platform to people in entrepreneurship. Some of the people we've seen before that come in for various reasons, they're kind of hardened by, like, they're afraid to talk about certain things in front of certain people because somebody's going to steal their idea, somebody's going to shoot down this or that. But giving people the platform to kind of be a little bit of vulnerable. Yeah. That's kind of the idea around 1 million cups is nobody's going to shoot you down. Just talk about it, see what kind of feedback you can get positively. But giving people the platform to be vulnerable and talk about those stories of failure and mishaps and growth and progress, and kind of just give them that platform to share. I think that's going to be important.
Yeah, it's great
to do so.
Yeah, I think you should start getting political.
Yeah. All right, let's go around. Who all did you vote for?
More political, huh?
Have we had enough whiskey for that?
More stories about rigged elections and all that. Yeah, okay, that won't piss anybody off. That's a good idea.
Let's go around, everybody. Who'd you vote for?
Right.
What do you think, Davis?
All right. So, 400th episode. I hope I'm sitting around this table.
So do we.
Hope we have quite a few more old hosts and everybody around this table.
About old.
He's looking at me.
Objective.
He's looking at me.
Not at all.
Everybody's old to you.
No, but I mean, having spent a year here and looking forward to the next 100 episodes, I hope that, we can continue to be an educational platform kind of through the startup lens, which is honestly, in my perspective, kind of a niche a podcast or educational topic, but to a larger audience. I know we talked about Fayetteville kind of being the next Austin or Northwest Arkansas, right? But I mean, it'll continue to grow, and the impact that Jeff has had and Startup Junkie has had on the area. I think we had probably over 2,000 meetings last year with 1,200 some odd entrepreneurs that we
most of them are pretty odd.
Yeah, that's very true.
If you're an entrepreneur, you got a few marbles missing, a few screws loose.
Yeah, I'm just excited to see how what those metrics are going to be in the next 400 episodes, but also just the reach of this podcast, because it definitely does have an impact for a lot of people out there that maybe want to start a business or small business or whatever that may be.
No, that's great. Very, very thoughtful.
And next we're going to go around the circle and all give our own pronunciation of niche.
Yeah.
Niche. Tomato.
You didn't have to call me
caramel, syrup. Oh, colloquialisms,
Could be
right?
anything, man. Who knows?
Cool. I want to see more women. We're half the population, and some of us are pretty damn cool.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
I mean, I agree with that.
Yeah,
We need to do a better job,
Davis.
for sure. Yeah, if only we had somebody doing
It's
it for
not y'all's
us.
fault.
Yeah.
I mean, because women are afraid to come forward a lot of times. They
Yeah.
don't want to put the spotlight on themselves.
Yeah.
And most of them, if you were to approach them, I'm willing to bet the ones you have approached, the first words out of their mouth is, I don't have anything to share.
Yeah.
Well, and I would say probably our inbound requests too.
It's mostly dudes.
It really is a
It's a bunch of narcissistic, sociopathic self-promoters. And that's mostly not women, right? It's a bunch of dudes.
It's easier for dudes to promote themselves.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's a really good point. We need, that's really good. That's a good call to action. Well stated. Well stated. Matthew?
So I think it's already ingrained with what we do, but just keeping it authentic. Even if we did get a shit ton of sponsors.
You mean people can't tell that we're scripted?
Very highly scripted.
Yeah, I mean, this is...
They're reading your eyes going back and forth.
Yeah, I mean, we do like 27 takes per episode. No, keep going. You're right. You're on the right
like
track.
You're saying, it's very disarming for guests. Doesn't matter where they're coming from, what languages they speak, etc. It's a fun time, and people are more willing to open up, like with Joe Rogan's podcast. Like, it's just sitting there having a conversation. We're not formatting it like that, but we're
not smoking a doob, not rolling a J.
Not yet.
We're not that cool.
Soon.
Not yet. Anyways,
keep going, Matthew. Don't let this crowd rattle you.
I think that the stories are the biggest piece there, and just being genuine about it.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of fun, and we really don't discriminate who we bring on. As long as it's a good story, something to share with our audience. That's what we're trying to get to at the end of the day.
I guess that leaves it to me, huh?
Yeah. Unless,
Michael,
you didn't get to...
Did you want to... We kind of cut you off.
I did not have anything.
Okay. All right.
Land the plane, Jeff.
I'll land the plane.
What do we hope the next
listen, first of all, I hope we can build on the foundation that you have all built as being part of this. So it's been one of the most fun things that I get to do, and one of the things that I'm most proud of that we get to do, because I think this is a microphone to the world, and hopefully it has impact on people we might not ever meet. So we set some time ago, actually, this idea that we wanted to fuel 10 times more innovation and entrepreneurship in everything we do. That's kind of a vision. And that's kind of a rolling vision. And this is one of the ways that we can have a conduit to impacting more people that realize that they can change their own life and others through innovation and entrepreneurship. And they have to believe, right? We are that coalition of the willing that believe, and we're here to help empower them so that they can go do amazing things. And so I hope we continue to get amazing guests and have good conversations, and that we are serious people that don't take ourselves too seriously, because I think that's where the magic of the podcast falls. So how about that?
Well said.
Nice.
Hear, hear.
And with that, I think that's all we need to say for episode 300. I think that's a wrap.
Episode 300.
Thanks for coming,
It was a good
everybody.
one.
That was excellent. Thanks, everybody. Ecosystem builders, entrepreneurs, chambers of commerce, mayors, if you're interested in taking your economic future into your own hands, we've got a book that can help you. Creating Startup Junkies, Building Sustainable Venture Ecosystems in Unexpected Places is the guide. It's a little bit inspiration. It's a little bit toolkit. What it will allow you to do is take your economic future into your own hands and build a sustainable small business, innovation, and entrepreneurial ecosystem in your backyard. If you'd like to hear more, check out creatingstartupjunkies.com. The Startup Junkie podcast reaches over 100 countries and has had over 100,000 downloads. If you're interested in reaching some of the most motivated and engaged innovators and entrepreneurs on a worldwide basis, give us a shout.